Decides when the future gets here.
Oh, no!
The ship is on fire!
You have to check the report.
Are you kidding me?
That game was fixed.
And overall infotainment.
I'll take Jim Harbaugh.
What has he done?
Crazy Cootie coming at you.
Quiet, please. In exactly 15 seconds, we'll be on the air.
Thanks, big fella.
Don't you ever come back here again.
No arguments. Those are called ass tunes.
So buckle up.
You talking to me?
It's time for The Drive with Jack Ebling.
Yeah, for some reason or another, you sound a little taller on radio.
Great afternoon, Mid-Michigan and beyond. You're listening to The Drive with Jack, the Spotlight Radio Network. Jack Ebling here with my producer, Alex Heward. Alex, the World Series is over. And how about those Atlanta Braves? Only won 88 games in the regular season, but they got good at the right time.
That's right. That's what matters in baseball. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, you got to get in and be healthy and get hot, and that'll usually get some very good results for you. All of our Wednesday shows brought to you by Graf of Okemos. That's Graf Chevrolet and Graf Nissan. Nissan, the sponsor of the Heisman Trophy, side by side on West Grand River. 107 years in the automobile business. Alex, let's go right out to our guest line. Very happy to welcome in Carlton Valentine, Michigan State basketball forward from 1984 to 88. Two-time state champion coach with the Sexton Big Reds. One of the best teachers of the game that we've had in these parts. And he is also, of course, the dad of Drew and Denzel Valentine. V, how are you?
I'm doing good, Jack. How are you? How you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I actually thought about a bunch of people Saturday after the game, and you were one. I said, I wish I had been with V. I could have seen him watching that game because I know how fired up you get. And you were probably sweating profusely. You probably needed a shower after the game, right?
I did need a shower after the game. I was sweating profusely. I was nervous as all get out. Defense came up huge, man.
Yeah.
Big interception at the end, but also that big fumble recovery, man, would set up that run by our Heisman Trophy candidate. You know what I mean? So, hey, man, hey, we'll take it. We'll take it. And how about the first college football poll comes out? I did not see that coming. Yeah. Ranked number 3. So, like to get your thoughts on that, man.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah. We'll definitely talk about that. We'll touch that in just a minute. I want to go back to Saturday, though. What were you thinking when Michigan went up 30-14?
I thought that Mel Tucker needed to circle the wagons, and the one thing about that team, they never quit. I thought about the overtime game against Nebraska this year and how that team shows so much resolve and not quitting and fighting to the end. And this seems like what this team is all about. Like, they're not going to quit. They're not going to die. And the defense is going to save you this season. When the offense maybe isn't getting where it needs to go, the defense is good, man. I was sweating bullets, but I thought about, hey, this team's going to fight through it because they've had tough games. It's easy when you win by a lot and you blow people out all the time, and then when you get in those battles, you find out what you're really made of. So I was really, really proud to be a Spartan on Saturday.
Yeah, I mentioned this yesterday, V, but if you looked at the actual players, the talent on the field, and not just where they were recruited and their rankings coming in, but the way they played, Michigan having more than 100 yards over Michigan State in the game, you would have to say that Michigan, at worst, was even with Michigan State, and most people, I think, might look at their talent and take it, would prefer it. But in terms...
They played a great game.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it, they played a great game. You know what I mean? They probably should have won, but if I coulda, woulda, shoulda, and if ifs and buts was candy and nuts, every day be Christmas,
Well, that's exactly where I'm going with this, because there's another component. And more than the home field advantage or more than the result of replays, I think there was a decided difference in coaching in this game. And you could see it in terms of body language, in terms of composure, in terms of one coach staying in the fight and the other one spending a lot of the second half auditioning to be the Big Ten supervisor of officials. I thought that when Michigan State can get a couple of scores before Michigan has 11 players on the field, it's like they had said, well, Michigan State, they might hurry up, but they're not going to do what they did. Michigan State played at breakneck pace on offense, and Michigan was totally unprepared for that.
No, they caught them off guard a couple times, man, and that's really what got Michigan State's offense going was when they played at that quicker pace. I was glad that the offensive coordinator and Coach Mel Tucker went with that, because that definitely took Michigan off balance, and that was one of the major factors in the second half is when they were able to speed it up and get that defense off balance. You're right about that.
And there were a couple of plays, and I'm not just talking about going for the 2-point conversions, because the math dictated that was the sound thing to do. But you had a 4th and 1 in the first half, and play action. They threw it deep and got a big gain to Jalen Naylor. And then the 4th and 4, instead of trying to do a safer pass, they threw a fade route, perfectly delivered ball to Jaden Reed, and that led to another touchdown by Walker. So when they had to take chances, Mel Tucker and offensive coordinator Jay Johnson certainly did.
Yes, they did, and they did it without blinking. And so that tells you the confidence that they had in their offense, the confidence that they had in their execution, the confidence that they had in their guys to make plays when it counted most. And that only comes through practice. That only comes through trust. That only comes through, spending time with guys and knowing their capabilities. You know what I mean? If you got, it doesn't matter how much talent that you have. To me, it depends on the relationship and the trust that you have in your players to execute plays when you need it most. And that's exactly what happened for Michigan State.
The switching sports, do you remember a time, either as a player or as a coach, where you had to give your players confidence? They were looking to you, and if you had reacted differently, they might have folded it and said, well, we'll just get them the next time. Or do you remember a moment where you were faced with a choice and you rolled the dice? You had enough confidence in your players or in your teammates that, you said, we're better, we're good enough to do this, we're going to do it right now?
I would say in coaching, probably the most is when that happened to me. You know what I mean? I remember in 2010, I had my first of 3 Final Fours with the group with Zell, Brendan, and Sapp, those guys. Mm-hmm. And we get to the Final Four at the Breslin, and, my guys didn't really believe it. You know what I mean? They didn't really believe it. And I had to really, really preach to them, and I basically almost had to give them a game plan and not say anything, because the more I coached and the more I talked, I think I made them nervous. Mm. So I would have to give them, okay, this is what we're going to do. You guys go out and execute it. We practice it enough. You know exactly what to do. I'm trusting in you and I'm believing in you. And that really happened to us maybe a couple of times as we were making our runs with those Sexton teams that went to those 3 Final Fours and won the 2 state championships. The first year and the second year, we were down to Country Day at halftime, and Country Day had beat us the year before 71-47
right,
in the final. And we went in halftime down, and I looked at Bren, and I told him the normal thing that I used to say was, okay, you're not shooting a jump shot before you drive it to the basket. And right. I looked at Bren, and I said, okay, all bets off, do what you got to do. He scored 19 straight.
Right, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
Uh-huh. But you gave him the green light, and he made you look real smart.
Sometimes you got to get out the way.
Well, let's talk about the college football playoff and the first set of rankings.
Yes, sir.
That were released last night on ESPN. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people seem surprised that Michigan State was number 3. They're number 5 in the poll. But the committee, obviously very impressed by Saturday's win over Michigan. The Wolverines are number 7, so higher than they are in the polls. And you see the Big Ten East, represented with 3, 5, Ohio State, and 7. And the Big Ten West, much maligned Big Ten West, checking in at 20, 21, and 22.
Yeah. But, hey, you know what I want to say? That's much respect to the Big Ten for years and years and years. What have we been hearing? We've been hearing SEC this, SEC that, SEC this, and SEC that. Deservedly so, because they've had the teams to get it done. You know what I mean? With usually Georgia has been pretty steady. And you look at Alabama, Florida's down this year. You know what I mean? But usually they have the teams, and to have that many Big Ten teams even represented in the college football playoff. And, hey, at one point we had Iowa number 2 in the nation.
Right.
So, you know, hey, kudos to the Big Ten for bouncing back, especially after a COVID season. Kudos to the Michigan State University Spartans after the year they had last year. And to be if you told me before the season that you saw that coming, I would have took that to Vegas, man. Yeah. I would have took that to Vegas. But, no, much respect to the Big Ten Conference just in general for representing the Midwest.
Well, if you had told anybody, that Michigan State was going to be perfect in September and then perfect in October and was going to be 2 spots higher in the first college football playoff rankings than Ohio State and was going to have 3 fewer losses than Clemson, people would have demanded a sobriety test for you.
You got that right, man. And I mean, what about Clemson this year? Jeez, I mean, they've fallen off the map. I don't even think they're ranked in the top 25 at all.
No, they're not.
They're not ranked. So, hey, man, everybody has a down year, but once again, I'll keep it with the positive, man. Anytime that you have, you know, Michigan State, Ohio State, you know, Michigan up that high, man, that's big time. That's big time.
And Kenneth Walker III, talk about saving your best for the biggest moment. No one in history of college football had ever scored 5 touchdowns against the University of Michigan. You can go back to those with 4 touchdowns, including Red Grange, and all the way through. Monte Ball had 4 touchdowns against him as well. But when you think about what he did with the weight of entire fan base on his back, his team needing him to deliver, he did it in such a big way. The 197 yards, he only carried it 23 times. This wasn't like a Lorenzo White game where he carries it 3 out of 4 plays. That was not the case. And then afterward, the reaction he had, and he was just kind of smiling and modest as his usual self. They asked him about the series. He said, well, you know, I really didn't watch much football growing up. Well, what'd you do? Well, I was out playing. He's the only person I know who had never seen Wowie has trouble with the snap until last week. He'd never seen that play.
Yeah.
And for him to do what he did and then thank his offensive lineman again, you know, he name, image, and likeness. You get a lot of chances to do things. And the first thing he said was, I don't want to do anything which is going to detract or, you know, I don't want to be different from everybody else. So he gets a deal, with a mattress and bedding company. And the most important thing to him is being sure that his offensive linemen all have these deluxe box springs and everything that goes with it. I mean, you know, it's a pretty heavy investment. It's like $2,000 per. And he wanted to make sure that those guys were all taken care of. So now he's got some other options, right? And I've been talking to people who want to get to him and talking with his representatives. And you know, a bunch of ideas bounced around. You know what he decided to do?
What's that?
Absolutely nothing. He said, you know, maybe when the season is over, I'll look at something. But right now, I don't want to do anything that's going to detract from us beating Purdue and finishing this out. We've got a chance to do something really special. And I'm not going to be the reason we don't.
you know what? That's a wise young man. You know, I believe in that. That's the kind of way that I believe in sports. Good things happens to good players and good teams and good programs. Is that you don't get ahead of yourself. You know, you play each game one game at a time, and you know this NIL is really going to cloud and murky things up for a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just look at the Oklahoma situation. I don't really want to get in that, but I mean, they started out with a Heisman Trophy candidate, and then they got a freshman starting now, and Spencer Rattler had took all this money for the NIL, and he's not even playing now. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I mean, you look at. I mean, it's almost bad karma to take stuff before you've earned it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I used to tell my guys, like, every year when I was coaching, and it's funny because we get to the playoffs, and they say, who do we play next? Who do you play next? I say, you play the next game on the schedule. That's who you play. Don't worry about the bracket. Don't worry about where we go and where you play the next game on the schedule, and, respect your opponent and just be ready.
Well, at number 3, and that is as high as Michigan State has ever been ranked. That's where they were at 2015 when they wound up playing Alabama, losing 38-zip. But now they're in a position where it's all there for them, and if they win, they will definitely be in. Chance that they could even be higher than 3. Alabama and Georgia would play, so if Alabama loses again, then they're going to fall out.
Yeah. I always say you got to play the next game on the schedule. And once again, that next game is 3:30 on Saturday at Purdue. And I just remember, I saw Magic tweeted something that, hey, make sure we come ready to play because, remember, Purdue was Iowa was number 2 in the nation, and Purdue took it to them. So, hey, play the next game on your schedule. Always. It's a Morgan Wootenism. Always respect your opponent. And the way you do that is just by preparing, being ready to play, and staying humble and staying hungry. And it's great to see Kenneth Walker do that and stay with the good old school traditional values. And we kind of gotten away from that. Not to say NIL is all bad. It's not all bad. It's a good thing, but. I like to see the way he's handling everything.
Yeah, and V, when you think about where this team is getting ready to go on the road, no team in the country has had more than 4 road wins. Michigan State has 4, and they have a little bit of company there. But if they win Saturday, they will be the first team in the country this year to have 5 road wins. Mm-hmm. And they'll have another big shot a couple weeks later in Columbus, but they would certainly lock up 5 road victories. There aren't very many teams can say they won 5 road games in a season. But Mel Tucker said, and he knew all the stats. He had all the numbers there in front of him. They call them the spoiler makers for a reason, because
that's right.
More than any other program in the country, sometimes when they're good, sometimes when they're not very good, they jump up and they bite number 1 or number 2 ranked teams. And you can look at Michigan State twice. Once under Biggie Munn, once under Duffy Daugherty, when Michigan State was number 1 in the country and lost at West Lafayette. And you can look at Nick Saban's last team, and this was right after Michigan State had beaten Michigan in the Bill Burke, Tom Brady game. Plexico Burress went crazy in '99. And Michigan State was unbeaten and went down to Ross-Ade Stadium, and they didn't just get beat. They got hammered. It was 52-28. And, V, I've never seen this before. There was a guy I couldn't identify before the game for Purdue who caught 21 passes in the game. And Drew Brees just kept finding him, and they were playing catch all day. He had 301 yards. One guy. 301 yards in receptions, and a lot of people wouldn't have been able to pick Chris Daniels out of a line and wouldn't have known if he come and sat on their lap.
Once again, I'll go back to my original thing. Hey, get ready to play the next game on your schedule. And Purdue, to me, I'll go back to Judd Heathcote, Coach Heathcote, and he says anybody can beat anybody. this time of the year. And listen, we're 8 games in. You play a 12-game regular season. We're more than 3/4 of the way in, and if you're not ready to play, you will get popped.
What impresses you the most about Mel Tucker as you watch him? Came in last year, probably the most difficult challenge in the country. Comes in on February 12th, doesn't know his players, can't recruit, doesn't have spring practice, can't get players on campus. They're working out at home, lifting milk jugs. And then they get here and they say, well, season is over. You're not going to have a season. So they just go into a weight training regimen. And then the Big Ten says, hey, whoa. You're going to play. And, he's got guys here. The roster was depleted. Somehow, amazingly, they were able to still beat Michigan in Ann Arbor and beat the Big Ten West champion in Spartan Stadium. But, 2-5, that's not exactly the way you want to start. And at the beginning of the season, when Vegas has you winning 4.5 games, when you're picked by the coaches and the media to finish last in your division, and when USA Today comes out with the story, instead of picking the best teams in the country, they pick the 10 worst, and you're on it. And suddenly, here you are, you're going into the first week of November, and you have a chance to double, not exceed, double your Vegas win projection, and you're number 3 in the country. It's an incredible story. It doesn't happen by accident, as Mel likes to say. Success leaves clues.
That's right. I always think about one of my favorite mentors and somebody who kind of helped me in the coaching game, Chris Ferguson, who was just a great person, great man, a guy who I learned a lot from in high school coaching. He used to always say, it don't happen through osmosis. It don't happen through osmosis. But no, Mel Tucker, to me, has shown you what kind of coach he is. Not only that, not just by him, but, look at the staff that he assembled, that he brought in here, bringing back former players, you know what I mean? You got Courtney Hawkins in there. Hawk was a great receiver, played in the NFL from Flint, and working with our wide receiver crew. He's got, Speedy Naylor and Jaden Reed up to par. And then you look at, he keeps Coach Burton on, you know what I mean, as a defensive coach. And, I mean, he's assembled one heck of a staff, and he's a great representative for what college football is all about. It's hard work, dedication, believing in his philosophy, and getting his players, his kids, his young men to buy in. And nowadays it's so hard to get guys to buy in and to get them to believe in what you're selling. He gets Connor Hayward to come back. You know what I mean? That guy was a fullback, and now he wants to come back, change positions, and tight end, and is making an impact on this team. And I mean, that says a lot about Mel Tucker, but it says a lot about the staff that he brought in. And I'm just amazed every time I see something. He's doing something new and different each week.
Yeah, and when you think about all of the temptations to look ahead, to get the big head, all of those things, and hey, Michigan State could lose 3 of the next 4. It's possible. It is possible.
Right.
That they could go to Purdue, and this is a team, as we've talked about, that has a big road win over Iowa. Had a great road win last week against Nebraska, and we know how tough Nebraska was for Michigan State and for Michigan. So, Purdue can play. They've got a couple of guys out there who I think will be the second and third best players on the football field, in David Bell and a guy named George Karlaftis, who is he could be Aiden Hutchinson's twin. So, you've got players like that. They certainly have some ability and playing with great confidence, and now, Michigan State will be a target. We know that Penn State going to come in here. It might be a season saver. It might be a job saver in some ways. James Franklin's going to have a lot on the line if he can figure out what city he's going to. He didn't have that figured out last week. But if he can If he can do that, then Penn State's going to be a load, and we know that Michigan State's going to be a decided underdog in Columbus. So I'm saying that, people are saying, well, give me 12-0 or 11-1. Slow the roll just a little bit. But I would say that if Michigan State loses Saturday, it will not be because it's not focused, it's distracted, that it's not paying attention. It's not going to be that. It'll be matchups. It'll be things that Purdue can do that Michigan State has trouble with, and vice versa. And the bounce of the ball, one call, we saw that last week, how close that game was. Could have turned on 10 or 15 different things. And, Michigan State, it was their day. So, it could happen that it's something else. But I don't think it's going to be because Michigan State has gone in fat and sassy and just hasn't been paying attention. They're putting in the time, I'll tell you that.
No, they're putting in the time, and not only that, they're staying humble, and that's what it takes at this time of the year. Staying coachable, staying humble, and the biggest thing you can look at to me is something that you said earlier in Jaden Reed. Not Jaden Reed, but
Kenneth Walker.
Yes. Kenneth Walker, the Heisman candidate. What if he had taken the NIL? What if he had taken every deal, every commercial coming his way? Then that would send you a sign. But, for him to stay humble says a lot, not only for himself, but it says something about the program, Michigan State, Coach Mel Tucker. I think they get their eyes focused on the prize. And they could lose, but it won't be because of that, because all signs point otherwise.
Mel has a couple of phrases, and we hear them every week. And it's, there's coach speak and cliches that become familiar with a certain coach. And one of them with Mel, now we just laughed because we were just waiting for him to say it. We're actually timing how long it takes him to say it. It's the aggregation of marginal gains. And I told someone after the game last week that Kenneth Walker's gains were not marginal. They were way, way beyond that. But I think back to all the coaching influences that Mel Tucker has had, from back in Cleveland to Barry Alvarez, he played for, to Nick Saban, where he got his start, to Jim Tressel, then back with Nick and the national championship there, and then Kirby Smart, and then in the NFL. He's had so many different things, but he's never worked for Bill Belichick. But as much as any coach I've ever seen, and this includes Nick, Bill Belichick's mantra lives with Mel Tucker. And if you are in the Patriots facility, they have signs everywhere. Very simple, 3 words. Do your job. Don't try to do somebody else's. Don't wait for someone to do yours. Do your job. And that is exactly what Mel Tucker does and what he's demanding his players do.
And it's obvious because, those are the results that you're getting each week. That defense is incredible. That defense is incredible. Offense moves the ball. Hey, what about the people that don't get a lot of credit? The offensive line, because Kenneth Walker doesn't get yards by himself. So
he's coming close because he's leading the nation in yards after contact. And there were a couple of plays there, V, where we said, well, that's a 2-yard loss. And the next thing you know, he's out the other side and he's streaking to the end zone.
No, I agree there, but still, someone has to block someone so you can have the lane to go the other way. Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah. And he is he's a great cutback runner. He can see something, and all of a sudden, boom, he's gone. Think about that. What's that 90-something yard run he had this year?
Right.
He's great with that, but still, the guys up front are doing their job. My whole point was, do your job. Everybody's doing their job.
V, I promise, next week, let's talk some basketball, okay? We'll be getting closer. At Michigan State,
yes, sir.
It's got that game coming up against number 3 Kansas. We can talk a lot about that. And it won't be long before you can be watching the Spartans go up against the Loyola Ramblers, coached by some guy named Drew Valentine, in the battle for Atlantis.
That's right. Drew has his first exhibition game tonight. So I talked to him earlier today. I'm like, Drew, are you going to stream your game? He's like, hell no. I don't want nobody to scout me. So I won't be able to watch it. He said that I'll send it to you after you're done because I know you want to watch.
Oh, so. you just read my mind because I was going to ask you where I could find it. So I guess I can't.
Yeah.
V, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Have a great week, and we will talk with you next Wednesday.
I appreciate you, Jack. Thank you.
All right. We will be right back. And, Alex, we're going to talk with Tom Crawford. Bluebelly Tom going to be with us, and we're going to find out, yes, he is okay, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you who feared for his life, he has not taken it. He's okay. Well, he's as okay as he ever gets, so let's just put it that way. He was on Press Pass Sunday with Rico Beard and had a little bit of fun there, and Tom is glad that endeavor is finished. Tom and I also were guests of the Downtown Coaches Club last week, Alex. So we did our little dog and pony trash talk show for about 35 minutes there. That was a lot of fun. We'll be right back with Bluebelly Tom talking Michigan football up next on The Drive with Jack.
What makes Culver's Butterburger one of America's best-loved burgers? Our fresh, never-frozen beef is made from the highest quality cuts for richness and flavor. We press that beef into a very hot grill after you order, and that's how we get that nice caramelized edge. Then we lightly butter and toast the bun. Mm-mm.
That's what makes it a Culver's Butterburger. Let us craft one for you today. Welcome to Delicious.
As families and communities across Michigan gear up for an historic back-to-school season, Dean Transportation is looking for compassionate people to join their dedicated team of school bus drivers. They offer competitive wages and paid training, quality benefits, flexible schedules, and most of all, endless opportunities to make a difference. Apply today at deanjobs.com to join this critical effort to help students return to learn this fall. deanjobs.com.
NBC News Radio, I'm Lisa Taylor. Walgreens and CVS will begin offering coronavirus shots to kids ages 5 through 11 this weekend. Walgreens will begin the nationwide rollout on Saturday. CVS will follow suit on Sunday. The vaccine is from Pfizer. Virginia Senator Tim Kaine is admitting his colleagues in Congress are at fault for the Democratic candidate losing the Virginia governor's race.
Congressional Dems are tearing to fall. I mean, I'm going to be blunt. It's humbling to say it.
McAuliffe lost the race to Republican Glenn Youngkin. Kaine said McAuliffe could have sold the infrastructure and social spending bills if Democrats had passed them in October. Instead, those measures are stuck in legislative limbo because of a fight among Democrats. Despite that, Kaine insisted both bills will pass. McAuliffe has conceded the governor's race to Youngkin. It was seen as a bellwether for next year's midterm elections. Meantime, the New Jersey governor's race between Democratic Governor Phil Murphy and former GOP Assemblyman Jack Ciattarelli is in a dead heat. Ciattarelli has a very slight lead. Lisa Taylor, NBC News Radio.
Jack Ebling here with Matt Sloan at Graph of Okemos. Matt, people buying cars different ways now with inventory changes.
They certainly are, Jack. It's a wild time, but we're still selling them. You might not see them on the lot, but they're still coming in every day, and we're still delivering them. So what we're finding is a lot of people, they come in, and they actually place an order for the vehicle instead of finding one on the lot that they want. Then that comes in within 7-8 weeks, and they take delivery.
We'll still want that great Graph service. They're making friends.
Say you had the greatest job in the world, crafting pumpkin fresh frozen custard desserts at Culver's. Here would be your typical day. Pour farm fresh dairy into the custard maker and run continuously. Add real pumpkin puree and pumpkin pie spice. Then craft our pumpkin spice shake or salted caramel pumpkin concrete mixer.
Just like that, pumpkin's back at Culver's, but not for long. Welcome to Delicious.
The 26-year wait is over for the Atlanta Braves.
0-2 on the way. Chopper out to Dansby. Dansby throws to first base. Is this happening? It is! The Atlanta Braves are world champions!
The call on WCNN. The Braves win in Houston last night 7-0 to win the series in 6 games over the Astros. Jorge Soler, Dansby Swanson, and Freddie Freeman all homering. Max Fried with 6 innings of 4-hit ball. Soler named the World Series MVP. The Braves had made 16 playoff appearances since their last title in 1995. NFL news, the Raiders released wide receiver Henry Ruggs III following his involvement in a fatal crash early Tuesday morning. Ruggs is facing felony charges of DUI resulting in death. And the first college football playoff rankings are out. Georgia is on top, followed by Alabama, Michigan State, and Oregon. That's sports. Paul DeCastro, NBC News Radio.
You're listening to The Drive with Jack Epling.
You want to win, don't you?
Well, I think I'd really rather try to beat him honestly.
SpotlightMediaStudios.com.
Well, welcome back. It is The Drive with Jack, the Spotlight Radio Network. All of our Wednesday shows brought to you by Graf of Okemos. Stop and see Matt, Mark, and Greg. They'll take great care of you as they have on all 7 of my leases and purchases. Alex, let's go right back out to our guest line and welcome in Tom Crawford, Bluebelly Tom, my broadcast partner for 19 and a half years. He's a regular contributor to Wolverine, and he is creator of Crawford Podcasting Network. Tom, I know you've had better weeks, but you showed again Sunday night on Press Pass. I guess it was actually Monday morning when the show aired. Why you are so many Spartans' favorite Wolverine. You just take a licking and keep on ticking.
Well, I'm getting pretty callous to some misfortune in this rivalry in the last 14 years. Maybe that has something to do with it. Living here in the bowels of, Spartan Nation, whatever you want to call it. But no, that was missed opportunities. A lot of meat on the bone, as Harbaugh likes to refer to, for this team. Red zone, you can't kick field goals. The red zone's been their Achilles heel for all 7 years of the Harbaugh era. So they got some fixing to do. But as we saw last night, there's opportunity galore.
Right.
It's there for the taking. So pretty much they might need a little help here and there, but they run the table. They got a pretty good chance of being the CFP.
Yeah, I would say that if they win their next 7 games, they'll be national champs.
That's something I would come up with. maybe 20 years ago.
Well, I told everyone that I hope they understand once the trash talk and the smirks die down a little bit, what they really saw were 2 really good teams. And whether Michigan would have won 33-30 or Michigan State 37-33 does not detract from the fact that both of these teams left it all out on the field. And 2 really good teams, as the committee, as you noted, recognized. I still can't believe East Lansing product Andrell Anthony. And talk about a first reception in your career.
Yeah, they were in a crossing route, which, basically that's what Cade McNamara did in that game. He didn't really throw a ball beyond 15 yards, but it was effective. It was kind of like Ohio State, what they do with Michigan the last few years. And Andrell Anthony, we've been hearing about this since, I heard about it in Indianapolis when I asked Jim about Andrell and talking about all the great catches he's making in practice. He's almost there. He's getting there. Well, I guess he finally got there, and what a debut. It could have been super sweet for him, that young man. And so, he looks like a go-to guy right now. He's wearing the right number 1. But their problem is not on the offensive side of the ball. It's that defense, and that's what they're going to have to fix real quick, obviously, before Thanksgiving weekend.
Well, this was, the number 2 ranked defense in the country, and I'm sure that they're not going to play this way all year. But the thing about the offense was that they still, as you say, in the red zone, that's a problem. Kick too many field goals. It's the old Morris Watts line. If you average 2.8 field goals per game, you're going to lose 82% of the time. And you've got to punch it in because 7 is more than twice as much as 3.
Yeah, there were a couple. We always talk about the 8 to 10 plays that decide a game, and Blake Corum, that drop ball. Yes. And I hate to pin it on one kid, but his body language was bad the rest of the game, and that could have been a really, really chunk play to say the least, if not a touchdown. And then in the fumble, that everybody blames J.J. McCarthy. That was a Blake Corum screw up on that part. He was supposed to receive the ball. He did not take the ball. And so everybody looks at it from that element. But regardless, the woulda, shouldas, you got to play above that, including questionable calls. You just have to. You don't have any choice. You got to win a game decisively on the road. You got the crowd to deal with and other factors, and they'll learn from it, hopefully clean some of this stuff up, and see what's still out there.
Tom, you have seen so much great defense from the Maize and Blue over the years, and no one, going back to the first year of football, and Michigan taught a lot of other schools, including Notre Dame, how to play it. When you go back, no one had ever scored 5 touchdowns. Red Grange had 4, and contrary to some of our listeners' belief, you and I were not there for that game. I was there, however, to see Bob Ferguson score 4 against Michigan when Paul Warfield was his running mate at halfback, and the quarterback was former Tigers pitcher Joe Sparma. I saw that game in Ann Arbor in '61. And then you've seen a bunch of others. I guess Monty Ball, right, had 4, and some others. Of all the games you can recall against Michigan, have you ever seen a better performance by an opposing running back?
No, it was a great performance. He's a tremendous back, and Michigan knew that going in. But you know, Michigan fed the narrative. I mean, they were running that 2 safety high back there. They had their safeties back like they were taking on the Kansas City Chiefs for some reason. And you put that kid out in space, it's lights out. I couldn't quite understand that, let alone running the defense on the field the countless times that helped the cause. But no, he's a wonderful back, and he's going to be in New York City, probably win that doggone thing, the Heisman. The way things are playing out, obviously he's got some big games ahead of him, but what a year he's having.
I did not get a chance to ask Mel or any of the assistants this question, but has Michigan had any problems getting players on and off the field previously? Because Michigan State saw something and operated at a tempo previously unseen in this program.
Well, you can't run guys on and off the field against tempo.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you where Michigan gets. I mean, Larry Johnson coaches at Ohio State,
right?
Tremendous D-line coach. He's been doing this the last several years of rotating because he's got so many great linemen. He rotates 8 guys, 4s, and I think Michigan the last couple of years is trying to mimic that. And I guess Michigan State, which exploited that. Holy cow, it was like a Chinese fire drill out there. And why didn't you call timeout? I mean, this is where Harbaugh got out-coached because, he didn't he should have called timeout.
Yeah.
And in that situation, which led to the touchdown. So a lot of factors involved in that, and I hope they get fixed fast because it could be ugly against Ohio State if they do that kind of nonsense against the Buckeyes.
Let's talk about the games leading up to that. We mentioned for Michigan State the task at Purdue, and the Spartans are 2.5, 3-point favorite in that one, so it should be another nail biter. And then Michigan State gets Maryland at home before finishing up with Ohio State and Penn State. Michigan, a little bit different challenge. You've got the Hoosiers Saturday night, right, in Ann Arbor?
Yeah, Saturday night, 7:30 on Fox. Oh boy, with all those commercials, prime time. I'll get home about 2:30. You'll probably just be warming up, so maybe I'll call you on the way home.
Yeah, I'll be home from West Lafayette by then.
Yeah, you will. And but we just learned that Eric All might not play in that game, who had a tremendous game.
It's very good
against Michigan State. I think Michigan will be in good shape on this. There might be some hangover, but. I think they're going to beat Indiana. The big question is, can they take that struggling red zone offense and be productive at Penn State, which has the best red zone defense in the entire conference and 2 of the best corners in the conference. So, but one game at a time, right? So Indiana first.
So how do you think this Big Ten East is going to look when it's all said and done? Can you see Michigan 11-1, 10-2, 9-3, what?
It's a great question. Actually, I see them 10-2. If you had asked me on Saturday night, I would throw in the towel in on the Penn State game. I think Michigan's going to find a way to beat Penn State. I really do.
Yeah.
I know it's going to be a nail biter, probably similar to the Nebraska game. But I think they'll play well against Ohio State, but I don't think they'll beat Ohio State. It'll be probably, maybe it might even be like that 2013 game, 42-41. Who knows? But I see them 10-2, and wherever that takes them, maybe Fiesta Bowl or whatever. But once again, no Indy trip, no Big Ten title. The beat goes on.
If Michigan could beat Ohio State, whether they beat Penn State or not, will all be forgiven as far as Jim Harbaugh is concerned? And will people say that's the guy that we wanted so much back in 2014?
I think there'll be he'll get a reprieve. I mean, I think that there'll be a lot of euphoria. I mean, if they get to Indianapolis, all will be forgotten. I mean, because they got a shot at the CIP. So ultimately, you have all the goals in front of you.
Right.
They would forget that Michigan State game and say, "Hey, we'll clean that up next year." Everything would be forgotten at least for a year. Okay, how's that?
If Michigan does struggle at Penn State, if it's the whiteout or whatever, and then lose to Ohio State, and let's say it's not 42-41, but it's 34-17. Then what's the reaction to Jim Harbaugh? And he's already taken the pay reduction, but 9-3 after you start 7-0 is different than maybe doing it another way.
So you're saying, by definition of struggle, you're saying lose to Penn State.
Lose to Penn
correct?
State and then lose by double digits to Ohio State.
Okay, that would not be a good narrative for Jim Harbaugh. And the way that, and I give Ward Manuel a lot of credit, they restructured that contract. The buyout is much more lucrative, way more lucrative than a lot of other schools are dealing with. Hello, Nebraska. So I think that he'd be on his seat would be smoking hot, and the natives would be coming unglued because all that, third or fourth highest paid coach. And now are we going into year 8 and try to chase this dream of getting to Indy and a Big Ten title? I don't think he would survive, to be quite honest with you. I know Larry Lage and others might disagree with me, but I don't.
Right.
I think there would be a mutual departure. Let's just phrase it that way.
Do you think that the impetus for that would come from within the department? Do you think Ward would say, "Okay, I gave this guy a shot. We did the best we could. It's time to move on"? Or do you think this would be alumni-driven? Booster would come up and say, "How many zeros do you want on this check?"
Yeah, I think booster-driven, alumni-driven is big input. University of Michigan's going through a crossroads up here. Mark Schlissel's going to be leaving the presidency,
right? And
we know in Big Ten sports, Michigan State, Michigan in particular, whoever's running the show as the president, and that whole priority and culture. How important is winning Big Ten titles? I think that might even come into play. I think there was a reason that contract was restructured, was setting the table in case they got to knock on this door again of do we want to keep Harbaugh as coach or not?
All right. When you saw the college football rankings last night from the playoff committee, what surprised you?
Well, the Big Ten in the lower echelons is in Iowa and Penn. When I saw that, I go, "Good Lord!"
Yeah.
Michigan State might be, they might be too.
Yeah.
For all when you got some of your victims, other Big Ten team, Wisconsin there, and I knew Michigan would be high. I thought they'd be 8, and my God, they were a 7th. I go, "Wow,
right.
This is doable."
Right.
If you still want to chase the fantasy.
Well, I'm glad they had them ahead of Oklahoma, because if you've watched the Sooners struggle against Kansas and other games, Michigan's played better.
Yeah, and I think this is another group of 5 dilemma that when's it ever going to happen? Well, when you go to 12 teams. And, so Cincinnati, that was a huge blow to them, because I don't think at 6, with the schedule they have remaining, including SMU, which is their best opponent, which is way down, not even appearing there, nor is the Houston Cougars, they got no shot of getting back in unless they get some major help from some others.
Right. Well, what do you have to do? You have to schedule the best you can, and they did go into Notre Dame. They thought Indiana would be better. Didn't turn out that way, but their problem isn't those games. it's struggling against Navy and Tulane, and you say, well, I mean, do they need style points? Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do. That's a great point, Jack. Tulane is horrible. That is a bad football. They won one game, and they struggled so long. I knew Cincinnati was in trouble when that happened this weekend.
In terms of what it looks like now with the SEC 1 and 2, I guess if Alabama beats Georgia, they'll both be in. But if Alabama is beaten by Georgia, are they definitely out, or is there any chance that we could have a 2-loss team in the playoff?
Well, I think they would need chaos, some strange chaos to help. I think they'd be out if everything goes chalk. But Alabama still got to deal with Auburn. I'm not, that's not a gimme game either. That's the only viable really opponent. They got New Mexico coming out. I mean, LSU, though, one of the worst LSU teams in recent memory, coming up this Saturday. So, maybe the style points, Jack, or how they compete against Georgia. In that when they meet up. I don't know, but 2 losses. It hasn't happened in the CFP, has it?
No, it has not. It did in the old BCS days.
Florida State,
and LSU, and that's happened. But I think there's a real chance, Tom, and everyone's talked about, the SEC can get half the field in. I think there's a legitimate chance that the Big Ten East will have half of the college football playoff, and the champion and one other. I think that if Michigan State loses a close game in Columbus and finishes 11-1, that the Spartans would have a chance. I think that Michigan would have a chance. If it beats Ohio State and it's in, there's a tie, 2-way tie, 3-way tie. Somehow, I think 2 of those teams from the Big Ten have a great chance to get in. It might require an Oregon loss. But I don't know that, Oklahoma still has some meaningful games. I don't know that they're going to win them. They've struggled so much. And as you say, Cincinnati, there's just not much there they can do.
Right. And I don't see anybody behind the flock moving forward like Michigan State did in 2015. I don't see that happening.
Notre Dame doesn't have any marquee opponents. It's going to really move the needle.
No, it's pretty clean. It's all up front. It's all the big guys up front in front of the parade route there that's going to determine this. But there's a lot of football to be played, as the old cliche goes, and it starts this weekend.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to someone today, new sponsor, in fact. We'll talk about a little bit later this week. But we talked about seeing some really bad football. And whether it's a bad high school team or a college team that doesn't belong on the field, someone who was at the Lions game Sunday left at halftime for the first time in 50 years and said 50 years,
wow.
And just could not stomach 2 more quarters of Lions football.
Well, when we talked about this on Press Pass, that's running out of gas, and I think the Lions play better on the road than they do at home.
Yeah.
And when you get kicked in the groin that many times, you run out of steam, and that was the optics were bad from the first series. They didn't want to be there, and boy, it showed with that final score. Philly just crushed them.
Tom, I was thinking about you last night because Izzo always says that to be a rivalry, both teams have to be competitive. And there was a time in basketball that it wasn't, when Michigan was really good, and a long time when he had his program going and Michigan didn't, and the rivalry wasn't really there the same way. Of course, you love to beat your opponent, but not like it was with Izzo and Beeline. And I think now what we saw Saturday, that was the kind of game that people are going to remember for a long, long time, and the kind of game, frankly, that they're not seeing on a regular basis with Michigan, Ohio State.
No, there's so much drama with Michigan State. There's not normal games.
Right.
I mean, there's controversy. There's woulda, shoulda, if they had done this, if they had done that. One guy made a 4th and 1 down there on that. That was a gutty call right down there, the 1-yard line. It was 30-14. There was just really pivotal plays in this game like I never can recall.
Tom, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it. You'll be back on Press Pass a couple more times this month. And are you going to be there Saturday night, or are you going to be checking out Central Michigan?
No, I'm Central Michigan. I'm heading right now to Western
you're
Michigan
there for the
versus
game.
Central.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
they're
right.
playing tonight in Kalamazoo. So
That's
it's
right.
that Maction game. So I'm doing that tonight, and then I'll be in Ann Arbor on Saturday night.
Fantastic. All right, maybe we'll talk to you on the way back.
All right, Jack. Thanks for having me on.
Tom Crawford. Well, we'll be right back, and Jim Stark is going to be here. The plan is that he'll be walking in any second from the Michigan Sports Legacy Conservancy. And then we're going to wrap up the show with Dennis Dodd from CBS Sports, one of the top college football writers in the country. Alex, I have to tell you that if you had a Sports Writers Hall of Fame or a Sports Media All-Star panel, they were all at Spartan Stadium. Saturday, you just went down press row and you said, well, that guy hadn't been here before. I haven't seen him in 8 years. You know, one after another. We had Dan Wetzel on and Nicole Auerbach and now Dennis, and we're going to have Pat Forty on and Ivan Mazet. It was just a murderer's row of media giants there. And I was a little surprised also that, the overnight ratings for this game, by far the biggest of the season, including any SEC matchup. I didn't see that coming. And I was also surprised that with the dueling pregame shows, that Fox's big noon kickoff outdrew College Game Day.
Yeah, and they both had pretty good crowds, and it wasn't really just dueling either, because, I mean, there was also thrown in the mix the Barstool Sports.
Right. That was off campus, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know where that was.
Yeah, so they were attracting some people, too. So, yeah, for all three of those to have a pretty solid turnout, I mean, the place, East Lansing, was buzzing on Saturday, that's for sure.
And the overnight ratings, the national numbers gave Fox's show a little bit of an advantage, which... I don't know, maybe there were a lot of Reggie Bush fans. I did see a lot of females there wearing Reggie Bush jerseys, and he signed every one of them.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. All right. We'll be right back in just a minute. It's A Drive with Jack, the Spotlight Radio Network.
What makes Culver's Butterburger one of America's best-loved burgers? Our fresh, never-frozen beef is made from the highest quality cuts for richness and flavor. We press that beef into a very hot grill after you order, and that's how we get that nice caramelized edge. Then we lightly butter and toast the bun.
That's what makes it a Culver's Butterburger. Let us craft one for you today. Welcome to Delicious.
As families and communities across Michigan gear up for an historic back-to-school season, Dean Transportation is looking for compassionate people to join their dedicated team of school bus drivers. They offer competitive wages and paid training, quality benefits, flexible schedules, and most of all, endless opportunities to make a difference. Apply today at deanjobs.com to join this critical effort to help students return to learn this fall. deanjobs.com.
Netflix is rolling out its lineup of mobile games on Android devices this week. Subscribers worldwide can play 5 mobile games: Stranger Things 1984, Stranger Things 3 The Game, Shooting Hoops, Card Blast, and Teeter Up, with no extra fees, ads, or in-app purchases. To access the titles, users will tap on the new Games tab in the Netflix app for Android, where the games are listed. After selecting the title, users are directed to the Google Play Store to install the games, as you would any other app. To play, a Netflix membership is required. Yahoo is pulling out of China, citing an increasingly challenging business and legal environment. It's the second well-known U.S. tech firm to downsize China operations in less than a month following the closure of LinkedIn. Airbnb says it's clamping down on disruptive New Year's Eve parties. Housing site will be prohibiting guests without a history of positive reviews from booking one-night New Year's Eve reservations for entire home listings and 2-night reservations that may pose heightened risks for disruptive parties. Tech Report, Larry Olson, NBC News Radio.
Jack Ebling here with Matt Sloan at Graph of Okemos. Matt, people buying cars different ways now with inventory changes.
They certainly are, Jack. It's a wild time, but we're still selling them. You might not see them on the lot, but they're still coming in every day, and we're still delivering them. So what we're finding is a lot of people, they come in and they actually place an order for the vehicle instead of finding one on the lot that they want. Then that comes in within 7-8 weeks, and they take delivery.
We'll still want that great Graph service. They're making friends.
Say you had the greatest job in the world, crafting pumpkin fresh frozen custard desserts at Culver's. Here would be your typical day. Pour farm fresh dairy into the custard maker and run continuously. Add real pumpkin puree and pumpkin pie spice. Then craft our pumpkin spice shake or salted caramel pumpkin concrete mixer.
Just like that, pumpkin's back at Culver's, but not for long. Welcome to Delicious.
The 26-year wait is over for the Atlanta Braves.
0-2 on the way. Chopper out to Dansby. Dansby throws to first base. Is this happening? It is! The Atlanta Braves are world champions!
The call on WCNN. The Braves win in Houston last night 7-0 to win the series in 6 games over the Astros. Jorge Soler, Dansby Swanson, and Freddie Freeman all homering. Max Fried with 6 innings of 4-hit ball. Soler named the World Series MVP. The Braves had made 16 playoff appearances since their last title in 1995. NFL news, the Raiders released wide receiver Henry Ruggs III following his involvement in a fatal crash early Tuesday morning. Ruggs is facing felony charges of DUI resulting in death. And the first college football playoff rankings are out. Georgia is on top, followed by Alabama, Michigan State, and Oregon. That's sports. Paul DeCastro, NBC News Radio.
You're listening to The Drive with Jack Epperling.
Just trying to grind through camp here. Good fundamentals, build our conditioning, just keep getting better every day.
SpotlightMediaStudios.com.
Welcome back. It is The Drive with Jack, the Spotlight Radio Network. Jack Ebling here with my producer, Alex Heward, from our Spotlight Studios on Allegan. All of our Wednesday shows brought to you by Graf of Okemos. That's Graf Chevrolet and Graf Nissan, side by side. 107 years in the automobile business. Alex, I don't know if you've been watching this COVID list today. This is incredible. Aaron Rodgers, he's not going to play against Kansas City, and who knows after that. And now there's considerable discussion about what might happen with him after he is back healthy, because he had indicated that he had been tested and been vaccinated, and don't know whether there was some deception there, but maybe a semantics issue. But he was in areas without a mask where he shouldn't have been for a long period of time. And so I don't know. You know, he could be gone for a while.
Yeah.
And then Sidney Crosby, NHL star, he's got it, and he's in trouble. And just got the word here, Saquon Barkley coming back from injury, ready to get him on your fantasy football team. Not so fast.
I do.
He's got it. So
great.
Devontae Booker, that's your man. Pick him up.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go out to our guest line and welcome in Jim Stark. He is executive director of the Michigan Sports Legacy Conservancy, and he is our correspondent for the Tigers and the Pistons. Jim, how are you?
Good, Jack. How are you?
Good. Before we get into the World Series, before we get into the not ready for primetime Pistons, I have to ask you a question about last Saturday. You obviously worked, you did talk radio in Ann Arbor. You're familiar with the culture there. And it's kind of like when you're going on a long hike and you've got a rock in your shoe and you can't get rid of it, right? That's what Michigan State is to Michigan right now. And or just like a horrible rash that they can't scratch. But I'm thinking about Jim Harbaugh, and I know that he's relocated his parents there, and everything was supposed to be set. Not exactly working out the way it was when they brought him in and said that he's Bo Jr. and the prodigal son returns.
Well, the biggest problem, I think, Jack, is it's not just Michigan State. It's any big game. They can't win big games under Jim Harbaugh's leadership. Ohio State, It wasn't the game they won earlier, the first ranked team they'd beaten in like 15 games or something. So it's not just State, but obviously State's a big problem, part of the problem. But as far as I'm concerned, he's already spent whatever cachet he earned this year with that unbeaten record is now gone by losing to Michigan State. And now they got Ohio State, which is even a bigger thorn in their side, I think, in some ways. I think he may be done. If he can't beat Ohio State, I think they already cut his contract by half last winter, which is never a good sign. I think even the most ardent Michigan followers are starting to figure out they can't follow Jim Harbaugh if he can't win big games.
He's won an awful lot of games, what I call the who cares games. And the games you say that he's being paid to win as a coach of the leaders and best are the ones where they keep coming up short. And it's one thing when, you're just beaten, but when you are upset 4 times and your fan base has lost a lot of money in the process backing you against your in-state rival, and when your other rival, your real rival, as a lot of Michigan fans like to say, you give up 118 points in back-to-back games, that's not exactly a recipe for job security.
Well, and here's the thing, and they won't talk about this in our radio, I promise you that. They stay away from things like this. Michigan Wolverines were out-coached on Saturday. Mel Fisher and his leadership team out there now, they had Michigan jumping through hoops when they were running that or keeping their offense out there, and Michigan was trying to run their sub team in. They made them look like fools, and that was all about Mel Fisher and his coaching. They made Michigan look bad, and they were out coached.
Yeah. I thought even the sideline demeanor. I mentioned this earlier, Jim, that you saw, Harbaugh, and he's whining and he's trying to critique the refs. Meanwhile, stuff's happening. He's not really paying attention to the team and giving them feedback, while Mel Tucker, he looked so cool out there. And even when they got down by 16 points, it's, okay, what's next?
Yeah, I think again, it's bad enough to lose, get upset, but when you're out coached as well as outplayed, that's disturbing, because he's had this team for 7 years. He's changed assistants, he's changed coordinators. What else are you going to do other than change the head coach?
All right, let's talk a little bit about the World Series, and I don't know if Dusty Baker was out-coached by Brian Snitker. So. I don't think that was it. I just think that the Braves, an 88-win team, they got good at the right time.
And let's face it, the Astros pitching staff was a shambles these last couple games. Yeah. Where, in a way, maybe they were out-coached because Snedeker had his 2 starters lined up for games 6 and 7, right? Max Fried being the one last night. And Dusty Baker had no idea who he was going to pitch. So that was, I think, in some ways, better coaching. But you know where I think the Braves really won this World Series? It wasn't this week. It wasn't last week. It was in July. When they lost Marcell Ozuna, who was their starting left fielder to he was suspended by Major League Baseball because of abuse issues. And they lost Ronald Acuna, who was their best player. And they went out. They didn't get 1. They didn't get 2. They didn't get 3. They got 4 major league outfielders in that trading area, in that trading deadline area. And last night, Jack, those 4 players hit 1, 2, 5, and 7 in the clinching game. They weren't extras. They weren't bench players. They were critical players that they brought in. That is when they won the World Series. When they made those maneuvers in the middle of the season to adjust and to get ready when the injuries hit them, that to me is when they won the World Series.
Jim, how many organizations do you think would have had the stones to do that? I mean, this is a team that was below 500 midway through the year and only wound up with 88 games. So, it's not like you get a guy and they weren't exactly acquiring all-stars, although
John
Jorge Soler had 48 home runs. Yeah. Peterson
40 home runs, right?
Yeah. But, to make this kind of a move, you've got to have the approval from the top down. And I don't know if the Tigers have any kind of deal like that where they're all in agreement of the direction.
Well, Jack, I'll tell you one thing. This Tiger front office has undergone such radical changes in this last few months of everybody from not Al Avila, but everyone else below him. So I would say they're gearing this staff up to be much more nimble. They're all all the guys they brought up and promoted are all metrics, baseball metrics guys, saber metrics.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So they're preparing themselves for these kinds of decisions. But I don't know that it's the Stones to do it. It's the good scouting to know where to find those players. It's the same kind of scouting that the Tigers had when they found Akil Baddoo, right? But that's what the Braves had. When they went out and got those 4 guys, they out-scouted everybody because they were all available to everybody.
Yeah.
But they went out and got them. I don't have the list of trades. They didn't give up a ton of talent for them, but they were available at the right time. And then, of course, they got lucky because they did stay healthy and they got hot at the right time. Jorge Soler was the MVP of the World Series.
Right.
And that, to me, it takes a lot of luck, not just skill. But, again, it was a plan in place. They didn't panic. Like you said, they didn't panic when they were 500, but they kept playing hard, filled their holes when they needed them, and that, to me, is good. Is great management, great leadership.
And when your number 2 starter, Charlie Morton, suffers a fractured leg, and now you've got to have back-to-back bullpen games.
Right.
But you get through that, and you split them. You got to win in one of them, and then, they got that bullpen figured out. And you get into the 7th inning, and you're trailing the Braves. Good luck.
How many teams, Jack, could win a World Series with their top hitter and their top pitcher both out injured? That says a lot about the depth. It says a lot about the leadership. And I'll tell you this. The Tigers should take a real close look at this Braves team because they aren't just those 4 guys I mentioned earlier, Jock Peterson and Soler and Eddie Rosario. They are also the young guy because remember they struggled for a number of years up until about 4 or 5 years ago, and they had a lot of high draft picks, and they made those draft picks, but those draft picks now are the ones that are the lead in the team. Guys by Dansby Swanson wasn't their draft pick, but they traded for him.
Right.
The third baseman. Riley. Those high picks they made are now being the core of the team. The Tigers have got to use that same blueprint, and those high draft picks they've been making have got to start producing. That's the difference.
Jim, what do you think the odds are that in 5 to 7 years, we'll be looking at the Detroit Tigers and we'll say, they came together a lot the way the Braves did?
To me, there's a lot of similarities. Now, they've got to get lucky. Guys have got to stay healthy, and they've got to develop, right? Those 2 things have to happen, and those are kind of out of your control for the most part. Right. But they certainly have the same core of young talent. They have those high draft picks. If anything, the Tigers may have better pitching in the pipeline than Atlanta did.
Yeah.
Atlanta made some trades they got Charlie Morton in a trade. So if anything, the Tigers may have a little advantage there, but their day-to-day players have got to develop. That's, Darno was a draft pick. The second baseman, Freddie Freeman was a draft pick 12 years ago.
Right.
He's a holder,
right.
But that's where you got to develop your everyday team is through your system.
You have to get guys every conceivable way. This Tyler Matzik, who was unhittable, this Do You Believe in Matzik thing they got going on.
Right.
And, he was pitching. He had 2 different stints with the Texas Air Dogs of the Independent League. I mean, he wasn't even in anyone's system. And finally, Atlanta said, you know what? There's something about this guy. We're going to bring him in, and we're going to see if we can develop him. And, 3 years later, here he is.
It goes back to what we said earlier about the scouting, Jack. How'd they find those 4 guys when they were in front of everyone's nose?
Yeah.
How do they find a Matzik down in Texas playing one step ahead of beer ball?
Yeah.
It's scouting and it's knowledge, knowing when a player has potential and bringing that potential out. And let's not jump by Snedeker, the manager.
Yeah.
He was really most teams. When you've been an assistant for 20 years, you've missed your managerial opportunity, right?
Right.
If you don't get a job in 20 years, you ain't going to be the manager, right? But they went with Snedeker, who was a longtime Braves coach and assistant coach. That was a gutsy move, right? But it paid off big. So, again, good man. They saw something in Snedeker maybe nobody else saw. They saw something in Masick no one else saw. So that's managing, a leadership, and scouting all coming together at one time.
So as you look at what this season was, what's the lesson here, Jim? We saw a 107-win team and a 106-win team sitting at home last night looking at this 88-win team winning it all.
Take the preseason prognostications, throw them out the window. Take all your measuring sticks about who has when it comes, the way you win baseball games and championships is you play the game. You don't have the best WAR. You don't. This is not a board game, right? Mm-hmm. The way you win is you play the best baseball at the right time. That's how the San Francisco got to where they did, where the Braves got to, where the Astros got to where they were. The Astros have lost 3 key players in the last 2 years. They lost George Springer, they lost Justin Verlander, and they lost Garrett Cole, right? And there they were, though, in the World Series because they had players who played well at the right time. So it's great to have great rosters. If they aren't playing well at the right time, you can throw out all the statistics. It's about winning games down the stretch and in the playoffs.
I said that the letter F, was in full effect in this series. The Braves were a family. You could see it with the way they reacted to Brian Snitker. They wanted this for him. These guys had come up together, and then the ones who came in later, they were good fits. I think they were fearless. I think that the way they attacked the bases in that series against the Dodgers was brilliant. Washington was sending those guys in, and those were not high percentage decisions, but he looked at it and he said, we're kind of lucky to be here playing with house money. Let's see if they get a tight collar, and half the time the Dodgers didn't make the play.
Well, you just said something very interesting, Jack. You talked about Ron Washington, who's the third base coach. We talked about Snitker. We talked about Dusty Baker, who's in his 70s.
Yeah.
I think sometimes general managers, and Dave Dombrowski, I think, is one of them, they're almost too smart for their own good. They're trying to find that new manager who's the new cutting edge in this or the new wave in that. Sometimes they're right in front of your nose. Yeah. And Washington, Snitker, Baker have decades of experience. Sometimes having experience in baseball is the most important thing. Not just the guy that knows how to use that metric chart the best or the calculator the best or read the tea leaves. Sometimes it's good old baseball. Like you said, Washington, those may not have been high percentage calls, but at the moment, his instinct told him, let's make this decision, and they turned out to be. Sometimes that's what baseball is about. It's better instincts and better decision-making at the moment of the play, not just in the planning and the preseason evaluating.
Good point. There's one other F thing I want to throw in here, and that's the word fun. And I don't know whether, the Pearls with Jock Peterson and all the other little things that the Braves had going. I mean, it looked like a frat house half the time in the dugout. But, those guys were as loose as you could get, and they're coming out on the road last night in Game 6, and you figure, well, if they lose this one, then it's going to go to Game 7, and they had their shot with Fried. And the team that got tight was a home team.
Well, and let's make a distinction. Loose is not undisciplined.
Right.
There's teams that play loose but still play disciplined. You didn't see the Braves making mistakes.
No.
You didn't see them throwing to the wrong base.
No.
You didn't see them. They were still playing disciplined baseball, fundamental baseball, but they were doing it in a loose way. Sometimes teams get sloppy when they call that loose, but it's sloppy. Those guys were not sloppy. They never lost, and I credit Snitker for that. He is a manager who knows how to manage fundamentals, and it paid off at the right time with the right players. And look at that lineup. Again, those 4 hitters he picked up in the mid-season were in the top 7 spots. That's managing.
Well, you just gave me 2 more F words there, focus and fundamentals, and I want to give you another player, and his initials are FF. And you had to be happy for Freddie Freeman.
Oh, yeah, he's the only holdover through this whole transition period. He was a phenom when he was younger. He's now been around 12 years. He's starting to get into that. Well, is he ever going to? And he's been a Brave the whole time. He appreciated that win as much as anybody did because of his investment in the Braves organ. He's kind of almost a tie back to the old, to the John Smoltz Braves and the Tom. Not quite that far, but he certainly is a tie back to Chipper Jones and that era. Yeah. So it was a nice transition to this group to having him around. But let's say he's still a productive player. He had a big home run last night. He had several big home runs in the playoffs. He can still perform at a very high level.
Jim, I have not talked to John today, Smoltz, but he did a good job on the broadcast with Joe Buck. And I wanted to ask him, with a little dose of truth serum, how he felt watching the Braves win it when his teams won 14 straight division titles and only won the World Series once, despite his individual brilliance. They could have won it 4 or 5 times, but didn't. And then to watch this Braves team, this kind of collection of misfits, and and they're the ones out there celebrating. Does he feel great? Does he feel good? Does he feel cheated? I'm curious.
Well, I don't know John Smoltz as well as you do, Jack, obviously, but I do know him a little bit, and I would bet everything I got in my pockets and my bank account he was nothing but thrilled for these Braves. He's a Brave through and through, and he realizes because he's got some distance from the game a little bit. He's an analyst that. It's luck sometimes. Yeah. And winning a game is not just, like I said earlier, about a measuring stick. You got to have some luck. You got to have it. And it also shows how hard it is to win at that level. And as good as the Braves were, they only won once. You take the wins that you can get them, and you celebrate them, and then you hope to achieve it the next year, but there's no way to predict it. Now, I would bet he'd be very happy, and I think he would say that his legacy is now being carried on by these new guys.
All right. Switching from the sublime to the ridiculous.
Man.
The Detroit Pistons last night I can't even say they played Milwaukee. They were out on the court. They had 5 guys out on the court.
They played a decimated Milwaukee team, Jack, that had 4 of their top guys, I think, in the locker room or on the bench with injuries. I'll tell you right now, what I was thinking, but I was thinking this last week or so, is you and I, from the first time we saw that the Vegas line on wins over and under 25, we've been knocking that. We would say, what the hell? I'll tell you right now, at 1-7 now? Yeah. There's a reason why they build those big casino hotels in Vegas. They don't make a lot of mistakes. Maybe they saw things we didn't see because right now they're on a pace for not even 25 wins.
Well, to lose 117 to 89 to a team minus 4 starters. Now I know Giannis is good, okay, and they have some other guys on the bench who could start for most teams, but still. You're playing a team with 1 starter, and you are non-competitive. I mean, you are never in this game. It started bad and finished worse. You can look at they outscored by 7 in the first quarter, 11 in the second, 10 in the third, 10 in the fourth. They were consistently bad. And when you can go through the entire game, and I want to say they only had 1 starter in double digits. Yeah, that's right. They had 1 starter in double digits.
Yep.
And then, here you got Sadiq Bey at 4 points. He's 2 for 13. Cade Cunningham, 2 for 14. He looked scared and lost last night.
Yep.
So
well, I would say this, Jack. There's several factors at play here. Number one, Jeremy Grant. I don't know. I read an article that the league has figured out Jeremy Grant. It's almost like the second time through the lineup. Yeah. You figure guys out, and then you throw pitches they can't hit. That was the context of the article, was that they figured out Jeremy Grant. He ain't surprised anybody now, and they know how to neutralize him, and that is one part of it. The second thing is Killian Hayes has absolutely been abysmal this year. There's been no development, no improvement. If anything, it's been regression. The third thing is obviously Cade Cunningham, who's finally playing. I think he's played 2 games now, and is not. To say he's off to a slow start is mild. I don't know what we expected from him, but it was more than this. And like you said, if he's a deer in the headlight look, who's going to lead? There's no one. They're all young, right? And then, of course, Saddiq Bey, he's been okay, but I expect him to take his game up a step. I've not seen that yet. So there's several factors that are contributing to this. But the biggest thing, I think, is this is a young team, and there's no real leadership saying, this is how you win, guys. They're trying to figure out on their own, and it's not happening yet.
Yeah, and if you look at the statistics, Jim, I won't belabor this, but almost every category, they're beaten. It's you can pick out one or two of these, and you say that'd be enough to lose the game. But in every area, when you are outshot 47% to 17% beyond the arc, you're not going to win in National Basketball Association. That's not the way the game is played.
And they've spent a lot of time and money on getting guys like Kelly Olynyk, re-signing people like Frank Jackson, Curtis Joseph, who are supposed to be the three-point shooters, right? Saddiq Bey set records last year as a rookie for a three-point shooter. None of these guys are really lighting it up. And let's face it, how many times have we heard they call, it's kind of a catchphrase, but the sophomore slump. The second year in the league, you're not surprising anybody. They're ready for you. And I wonder if that isn't part of the problem with Stewart and Bey, in addition to Killian Hayes.
Well, the only thing about the Pistons, Jim, okay, I'm always looking for silver linings. At 1-6, they have a better record than the Lions.
That is such a low standard you're trying to grab there, Jack. I can't even tell you. But we had no expectations of the Lions. We had high expectations of the Pistons to at least be a competent, competitive team. At 1-6, even after the road, they're not even competitive. And again, the way they played last night, they won't win any games playing like that. So it's concerning that not just they're losing, it's how. Remember last year when they lost a lot of games down the stretch? They were competitive, though. They'd lose it in the last minute, last 5 minutes, and these games aren't even competitive. That's my concern.
Someone said that this wasn't the only time we will see it all year, but the Lions and Pistons losing more games in a span of 8 hours than Michigan and Michigan State football combined have lost in 2 months.
Thank goodness for the college football games this year to lift our spirits because if we're looking, and the Red Wings have done fairly well too, which is another positive. But yeah, if you look at the Pistons and the Lions, and that's your only you love those and nobody else, you're in for a long winter, that's for sure. And again, I don't want to write the Pistons off at all because Kate Cunningham is still learning the NBA game, but still, we didn't expect this kind of a start at all. And once you get behind the 8 ball like this 1-6. You got to win 5 games in a row just to get to 500.
Yeah.
That's tough to do.
Exactly. Jim, enjoy your weekend and hope to see you next week.
Thanks, Jack. I'll be out next week.
Jim Stark, a Michigan Sports Legacy Conservancy dedicated to the preservation of sports in the state of Michigan. We're going to take a break, and when we get back, Dennis Dodd will join us, one of the top college football writers in the country. We'll get his take on this wacky Big Ten and college football playoff, how it's shaping up, next on The Drive with Jack.
What makes Culver's Butterburger one of America's best-loved burgers? Our fresh, never-frozen beef is made from the highest quality cuts for richness and flavor. We press that beef into a very hot grill after you order, and that's how we get that nice caramelized edge. Then we lightly butter and toast the bun.
That's what makes it a Culver's Butterburger. Let us craft one for you today. Welcome to Delicious.
As families and communities across Michigan gear up for an historic back-to-school season, Dean Transportation is looking for compassionate people to join their dedicated team of school bus drivers. They offer competitive wages and paid training, quality benefits, flexible schedules, and most of all, endless opportunities to make a difference. Apply today at deanjobs.com to join this critical effort to help students return to learn this fall. deanjobs.com.
NBC News Radio, I'm Lisa Taylor. Walgreens and CVS will begin offering coronavirus shots to kids ages 5 through 11 this weekend. Walgreens will begin the nationwide rollout on Saturday. CVS will follow suit on Sunday. The vaccine is from Pfizer. Virginia Senator Tim Kaine is admitting his colleagues in Congress are at fault for the Democratic candidate losing the Virginia governor's race.
Congressional Dems start tearing to fall. I mean, I'm going to be blunt. It's humbling to say it.
McAuliffe lost the race to Republican Glenn Youngkin. Kaine said McAuliffe could have sold the infrastructure and social spending bills if Democrats had passed them in October. Instead, those measures are stuck in legislative limbo because of a fight among Democrats. Despite that, Kaine insisted both bills will pass. McAuliffe has conceded the governor's race to Youngkin. It was seen as a bellwether for next year's midterm elections. Meantime, the New Jersey governor's race between Democratic Governor Phil Murphy and former GOP Assemblyman Jack Ciattarelli is in a dead heat. Ciattarelli has a very slight lead. Lisa Taylor, NBC News Radio.
Jack Ebling here with Matt Sloan at Graf of Okemos. Matt, people buying cars different ways now with inventory changes.
They certainly are, Jack. It's a wild time, but we're still selling them. You might not see them on the lot, but they're still coming in every day, and we're still delivering them. So what we're finding is a lot of people, they come in and they actually place an order for the vehicle instead of finding one on the lot that they want. Then that comes in within 7-8 weeks, and they take delivery.
We'll still want that great Graf service. They're making friends.
Say you had the greatest job in the world, crafting pumpkin fresh frozen custard desserts at Culver's. Here would be your typical day. Pour farm fresh dairy into the custard maker and run continuously. Add real pumpkin puree and pumpkin pie spice. Then craft our pumpkin spice shake or salted caramel pumpkin concrete mixer.
Just like that, pumpkin's back at Culver's, but not for long. Welcome to Delicious.
The 26-year wait is over for the Atlanta Braves.
0-2 on the way. Chopper out to Dansby. Dansby throws to first base. Is this happening? It is! The Atlanta Braves are world champions!
The call on WCNN. The Braves win in Houston last night 7-0 to win the series in 6 games over the Astros. Jorge Soler, Dansby Swanson, and Freddie Freeman all homering. Max Fried with 6 innings of 4-hit ball. Soler named the World Series MVP. The Braves had made 16 playoff appearances since their last title in 1995. NFL news, the Raiders released wide receiver Henry Ruggs III following his involvement in a fatal crash early Tuesday morning. Ruggs is facing felony charges of DUI resulting in death. And the first college football playoff rankings are out. Georgia is on top, followed by Alabama, Michigan State, and Oregon. That's sports. Paul DeCastro, NBC News Radio.
You're listening to The Drive with Jack Ebling.
Sorry if you're offended by that.
SpotlightMediaStudios.com.
Welcome back. It is The Drive with Jack, the Spotlight Radio Network. And Jack Ebling here with my producer, Alex Heward. And all of our Wednesday shows brought to you by Graf of Okemos, Graf Chevrolet, and Graf Nissan. 107 years in the automobile business. Alex, let's go right out to our guest line. And very happy to welcome in Dennis Dodd, one of the top football writers in the country. You're familiar with his work from CBS Sports. Dennis, how are you?
I'm good, Jack. So nice to see you again Saturday. How are you?
Yeah, that was a fun day in terms of what we saw from Kenneth Walker III, and I think 2 pretty good football teams.
I agree. I came away, obviously, wrote about Michigan State and Kenny Three Sticks, but I was impressed with Michigan, frankly. I mean, a huge mistake at the end, but they look like they have a quarterback.
Yep.
McNamara set a career high. They threw for over 400 yards as a team.
Right.
You could just take the highlight tape from Aiden Hutchinson. He was great throughout the day.
Yes.
So they're definitely not out of this thing. I think they could win out and make a lot of trouble for a lot of people in the Big Ten.
Yeah, by winning out, that would mean that Jim Harbaugh would finally get a victory over Ohio State. What do you make of the new look Buckeyes?
Ohio State, I'm still not sure about the defense. I know they've got a lot of gaudy statistics, 10 interceptions, 6 straight games with a defensive touchdown, but it's almost like, we have to wait until the end of the season until we know for sure. C.J. Stroud when everybody was down on them defensively, C.J. Stroud was keeping them alive. I was at the Oregon game, and it was very apparent to me then that he was a player. He had 7 touchdown passes through 2 games, and all anybody wanted to talk about was Kerry Combs. If they didn't have him, I don't know what they would have done going forward. But give Ryan Day credit for making that switch pretty quick. That was needed. It was a hard decision, I'm sure, and it worked out right away, given the play call. So I think the defensive backs coach, I think that's right. And it's worked. So they're in high gear, but I still have questions about the defense.
When you look at these teams in the playoff rankings last night, Dennis, I mean, there's Georgia, okay? And then the question for 2, and you can look at Alabama and say, even though they had a little hiccup at Texas A&M, there's still pretty good body of work. And then a bunch of teams, and Michigan State came out on top of that list. But to have 3 Big Ten teams from the same division in the top 7, and then 3 more from the opposite division in the top 22, and Penn State was not ranked, and they'd been as high as number 4, and Purdue was not ranked, and they'd beaten a number 2 ranked team in the country and beat Oregon State and won at Nebraska, which, you look at what Nebraska, they don't have a lot of wins, but they certainly scared Michigan and Michigan State. So, there are probably 8 teams in the Big Ten that you wouldn't want to play.
No, it's, I think the top is obvious. I was frankly surprised that, a couple of those 3-loss teams like Wisconsin. I mean, Wisconsin was actually horrible.
Yeah.
Early on, offensively, those 3 big turnovers, I think, in the red zone against Penn State early on.
Right.
Minnesota's coming of age. I mean, they've done pretty well for themselves, and they represented well in the opener against Ohio State. And now all these injuries that they've had, Ibrahim Muhammad, or Muhammad Ibrahim, is lost for the season early on, and they make do with that. So it's kind of a salute to the Big Ten this week. It'll work its way out, but Mississippi State, another one with 3 losses, which I was kind of surprised at. But we'll see. It's I've really got problems with how they treated Cincinnati.
Yeah.
How they treated Oklahoma. I think Wake Forest is about where I thought they'd be, maybe higher.
Mm-hmm.
But Cincinnati not only has a cement ceiling, it has a cement floor. They need losses by Oregon, probably both Oregon and Ohio State. What are the odds of that? Both of those things happening down the stretch. Say those things happen, they need losses from both Oklahoma and Wake Forest down the stretch to have a chance, because I think any undefeated Power 5 champion gets in the top 4. They always have. Would over Cincinnati in this case. So I think they're on attack from both ends.
When you talk about the Bearcats, Dennis, what hurts them most?
Well, I keep hearing strength of schedule.
Yeah.
And it's in the 90s, but I'm not seeing an example of that. Like Sagarin has them in comparison to maybe Michigan State. Michigan State's in the 30s, Cincinnati's in the 90s, except in his overall ranking, Cincinnati's 6th, and Michigan State is 24. Don't ask me to explain that, but it does put some doubt in your mind. Michigan, and I said, I'm not disparaging Michigan State, but the selection committee forces us to every week to make our case. I've said Michigan State and Cincinnati right now are the same team to me. They've, unless you pay attention to that Big Ten brand, they basically played the same schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan State's played Rutgers, they played Northwestern, so don't give me anything about Cincinnati's schedule. They've done something that nobody else has done. Go on the road to 2 Power 5s. I count Notre Dame as a Power 5. They've won one of them, or 2 of them on the road, one in the top 10. That's something Michigan State has not done, Georgia has not done, Alabama's not done. And to say you're going to drop them to 6th, 3 spots below Michigan State because they don't play a good schedule, that's ridiculous at this point. Michigan State and Cincinnati both played a group of 5. They both played in FCS. They both sort of struggled with Indiana. So I'm having trouble sliding a piece of paper between those 2 unless you pay attention to brand names, which the committee essentially does.
Do you think that Cincinnati's efforts against Navy and Tulane, when they say, well, you shouldn't have to have style points, but frankly, with that schedule, people are looking to see game control, margin of victory, how compelling the win is.
Yeah, and I would match that with Michigan State against Indiana.
Yeah.
You know, in their realm, the only game they've struggled with has been Navy. They took care of business against Tulane. It took a while. Okay, you know, they got it done. Yeah, Navy is hard to play against. We all get that. But I said after Notre Dame, they're going to have to blow everybody out, and they still have a chance to do that, except for Navy. Now,
and they need Notre Dame to keep winning.
And they need Notre Dame to keep winning. Absolutely. They need SMU to keep winning. You know, an SMU loss, that really hurt their case because that was the only chance of them playing a ranked team the rest of the way. And they play and beat SMU twice in the American. That helps. You know, but we don't know what SMU is going to look like right then. If they lose their coach, you know, by then, are they just going to shut it down? I don't know. I'm just speculating. But they need help. I said it's a cement ceiling. And there's people creeping up on them from behind. So, and starting at 6, I think they've hit their top. I don't think they can get any higher. That's something dramatic.
When you talk about being 6 and the separation between Michigan State and Cincinnati, the two schools in there at 4 and 5, you have an Oregon team which lost at Stanford, and Stanford, one of the poorer Cardinal teams we have seen. And Oregon's had some other struggles. Now they've had key players out, but and then you have Ohio State, which lost a game at home. Do you think that Cincinnati should be ranked ahead of those one-loss teams?
Yeah, I do. I guess at this point, one more point about Cincinnati first. I keep hammering this home. The committee has them 4 spots behind what the rest of the country, and that is the coaches who coach the games, the media who watch the games and cover it, and we can, disparage the media. I don't care. But those are the people that watch the games and know the games. And they are consensus number 2 in the country. And the selection committee, in its wisdom, says they're number 6. So that's another thing in Cincinnati. Two things about that. Yeah, I think Cincinnati deserves to be in the top 4. I'll just leave it at that. And however they get there is fine. I do think Oregon at 4 is a setup, and you can see it coming from here to next Thursday. They've done the right thing, quote unquote, the committee. They've honored the head-to-head. But look at the other protocols on there. It's going to be championships won. We know, Oregon and Ohio State have to win out. They can't afford to lose again. And it's strength of schedule. What do those November schedules look like? Oregon doesn't play another ranked team, at least right now. Ohio State could play 3. So on Pick'em Day on December 2nd, you can easily see them jumping Oregon, if Oregon's still even ahead, and saying, hey, body of work. They may do it as soon as next week. I don't know. But you can see it from a mile away. It happened in 2014. It happened very clumsily. If the listeners remember, TCU was 3rd in going into the final weekend. 3rd. And they beat Iowa State 52-3. Right. They won by 49 points. Were 3rd in the country. Ohio State at 6 beat Wisconsin, who was, I think, a 1-point favorite in the Big Ten championship game, 55-3. Big win, not a big upset. They got in. TCU did not. And so that was the first inkling I got of, hey, body of work, because I'm warning people on December 2nd, they're just going to throw the names in a hopper, and they're going to play the body of work card on everybody. So there could be some surprises.
Well, and I think one of the things that's so frustrating, Dennis, is the rationale that's given or the explanations tend to change.
Oh, yeah.
Like the chairman's underwear. And I would say that you and I have been doing this for a while. Longer than the playoff, longer than the BCS. I know you've been with CBS and since a century ago. But do you think you'll live long enough to see a group of 5 team in the playoff, a 4-team playoff?
Well, if it expands, yes, of course.
But in a 4-team playoff?
Probably not, no. As I said, there's that bias now. And Cincinnati should be given credit. They went out and got those games against Indiana and Cincinnati. I don't know how long those contracts are, but they consciously went out and wanted to play those games in consecutive games, not weeks. There was a bye in there, but games on the road against the Power 5 when they knew that could be their season. to beat the best, you have to, to be the best, you have to beat the best, kind of like that. So, no, I don't think that's going to happen. Having seen this and have the way it shapes out, you're going to have somebody first with the schedule. Houston had it in, was it 14 and 15 or 15 and 16? They beat Florida State in the bowl game and then beat Oklahoma at the beginning of the next season, but they didn't finish the deal in either season. They lost 4 games in 2016 and then already had a loss when they got everybody excited when they beat, I think it was Florida State in the bowl game. So, no, it's going to take something extraordinary where one of these teams goes out and plays a schedule so tough in the non-conference and then wipes the floor with their conference opponents that they cannot be ignored. But that's pretty much what Cincinnati's headed towards if they finish the deal.
Dennis, do you think that Alabama gets a shot at Georgia, that Nick Saban will figure out a way to win that game, or do you think that Georgia would win and Alabama would be out with 2 losses?
Well, right now, you're talking about 1-2. It doesn't matter where they are at 1-2 right now. If Georgia wins, Alabama's out, or at least I hope that they're out.
Yeah.
A 2-loss team has never been in there.
Right.
But never say never in the SEC. If Alabama wins, then they should get 2 teams in. Georgia's been the most dominant and consistent team all season. Can they win? Yes. I don't think they will win. I think Georgia's going to win that game. I think Kirby Smart's been thinking about this for, 7 years he's been at Georgia. He came damn close in that championship game in 2017. And I think now he has the better team because I think whatever weak spot you can find, if their weak spot is the quarterback, the former walk-on Stetson Bennett, he's pretty damn good. And they've got a running game. They're going to get their receivers back. George Pickens, one of the receivers from injury. So they're going to be fine. And that's a home game for Georgia in Atlanta. Now, Alabama's going to represent. We know that. But, no, I think that will resolve itself. And if Alabama wins, then you look at the possibility of 2 SECs and 2 Big Tens. I mean, that's an absolute possibility with these games that are left.
Yeah, the idea of having 2 Big Ten teams is something that has not happened previously, but there are ways that can happen too, given the fact that these teams play each other, and if Michigan State's only loss is less than a touchdown defeat in the horseshoe, then that speaks pretty well. And don't forget about Michigan. If they can figure out a way to run the table from here out and beat Ohio State, they're going to be in this discussion.
Yeah, and I've got Michigan and Florida to end the season because I was really impressed. This is the first time since I guess year 2 going in that I really thought Michigan had a chance to beat Ohio State.
Yeah.
Since the 4th down play, I think that was year
2.
Yeah. They've got team speed on offense. They've got speed and size and strength on defense, and I really like what they've done. Josh Gaddis finally feels a little more comfortable. Jim Harbaugh seems more comfortable. Yeah, that was a bad move with J.J. McCarthy letting the freshman in there at that time. But it wasn't something he pulled out of a bag. He'd been spotting him the whole game to start series.
Been doing it for weeks.
First down. Yeah, had been doing it all season. So in that sense, he was trusting what his team with J.J. McCarthy had done for weeks, and with I forget how many minutes left. Michigan State scored with 5 minutes left in that big run by Walker, but I forget when they got the turnover. It was about 7 minutes left. The Wolves came out after that. But at the end of the day, net progress by Jim Harbaugh. Give him credit.
All right. Looking at the coaching situations around the country, a lot of interest here in the LSU position. The USC job is open. There are others. It's hard to find a coach who has done a better job any year I can remember than Mel Tucker, coming off a 2-5 season and didn't even have a spring practice, didn't know any of his players, and reshapes his roster with 41 new players and surprises everyone. I think USA Today had him listed as one of the 10 worst programs in the country before the season. And so when you look at that and the way that he has kept these guys focused, and not always the most talent, I don't think they had the most talent on the field Saturday, but managed to make enough plays to win and to believe, and sometimes you play a little better than you are, and sometimes you don't. And I think Michigan State's getting everything out of what they have.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what's the question?
The question is, can you recall a guy doing a better job than Mel Tucker? And would you say right now he might be a front runner as National Coach of the Year?
Yeah, he is. He's the front runner right now for National Coach of the Year. Absolutely. After what he's done, you recounted everything that's happened there, the transfer portal, the organization, the belief in metrics and the science of the game. I talked to him privately after the game. We delved into that a little bit. And it's his time. And look, in a year where things turned on a dime, it seemed like every day, I think we've got to look at the realistic chance that Mel Tucker's a short timer there. I think he is. If he's not at the top of the list at LSU, he should be. I think James Franklin is out at both USC and in LSU because it's going to be a 7-5, 8-4 at best. I don't think that's a sell to those fans there. So I think Mel Tucker's going to have a tough decision to make if LSU comes calling. Formerly coached there with Nick, knows the league, having been a coordinator at Alabama and Georgia. And frankly, it's a better job. I know Michigan State doesn't want to hear that, but or does the administration come with an offer? He can't refuse. I don't know, but that's the coaching profession. That's college football. Today that Kenneth Walker can go from relative obscurity to Heisman Trophy frontrunner. Well, with that, you've also got to accept that Mel Tucker could come out, from going 5-7 at Colorado in 2 years and be National Coach of the Year and headed elsewhere.
Yeah, every coach at LSU since Jerry DiNardo, I think, has won a national championship.
Yep.
And
starting with Nick.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can say that with the talent pool there, you should be in contention for that. You can also say that less than 22 months after having a team that was considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest, in college football history, you can be out of a job there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, that's another part of it. That place is highly scrutinized. It makes Gene Chizik look like a short timer at Auburn. Remember, he wins a national championship in 10, and two years later, he's gone.
Right.
They're going 0-8 in the SEC. No, there's a high standard. I mean, I'm not saying it's not, the pressure doesn't come with it, but you've got, look, these coaches look at where are the resources, can I win there, do I have support, and the answer to all those are yes. The athletic director at LSU, Scott Woodward, wants to hit a home run. I think Mel Tucker may have come in the back door in this search as the home run. You know what I mean? I mean, here's the best guy on the board right now, kind of like a Steve Sarkisian last year at Texas, where Nick's not available. Forget that.
Right.
So Texas goes and gets his offensive coordinator. It's kind of the same thing.
Wanted to ask you one question about Kenneth Walker, and you were there in the post game, and they talked to him about his knowledge of football, and it really doesn't have much because he was out playing the whole time instead of sitting there watching the games with his dad. I think he's the only person in the country who hadn't seen, he had trouble with the snap until a week ago. But to have a game like that with the biggest television audience of the season, first player ever to score 5 touchdowns against the Michigan Wolverines. Is he the front runner for the Heisman, or is he just a guy we're going to see in New York?
He's both. I think he's going to get to New York. I think he's the front runner right now. But as I keep telling people, at this point in the season, Jack, you and I are candidates. You never say never. There are no absolutes in this game.
Yeah.
But right now, he's the front runner after what he did.
Your 40 time is a little better than mine, Dennis.
Maybe,
I'm betting on you. Yeah.
I got a torn meniscus. I'm not sure how to get that looked at. But it would help if Michigan State wins the Big Ten because, as we all know, wins are a part of it. It would help if he keeps running like he does. He's had some games where he struggled too. But if you lead the country in rushing for a Big Ten team, that's a pretty good place to start.
Right.
And he's got, as I think I wrote this Saturday, he's not only had a Heisman moment Saturday, he had 5 of them. I mean, each of those runs was unique. There was a bolt of lightning across the sky. It was amazing. His second level ability to gain speed and jump cut and everything else is amazing. So he in a season, frankly, where there hasn't been many Heisman moments by anybody, he made the case. But look, it can change week to week. But I like his chances to get to New York right now.
I told someone, Dennis, that, hey, this isn't 1997 where you had Charles Woodson, Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf, and Randy Moss, and one of them's not even going to be in the top three. This is a year where, you're kind of looking for candidates. And, 1 week it's Pickett, and 1 week it's Corral, and 1 week it's somebody else as a quarterback, maybe Bryce Young. But I think there's a little quarterback fatigue, too, in the voters that I talked to in Michigan. You have to go back to Ron Dayne in 1999 to find a non-quarterback or Alabama running back, or I guess last year wide receiver, but the only running backs in the last 22 years who have won the Heisman Trophy are Mark Ingram and Derrick Henry. So a lot of people are, they say, I'm not going to put 3 quarterbacks on my ballot.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I always say that, and you can't just dismiss Mark Ingram and Derrick Henry as pikers. They were pretty damn good.
Very good.
They deserved it.
Very good.
But I take the Heisman electorate as a whole because I used to be a Heisman voter, and you look at them and it's like 900 people who are like little kiddies pawing at a little toy, and that toy is, well, what's the shiniest object in the room? Well, it's a quarterback. It's it's this guy. And I submit, I have no way of proving this, that half of them don't follow the game, at least like we do. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Because they toss these votes around sometimes like they're nickels.
Well, I can tell you what we do here, because I'm the
state chairman.
State chair, yeah. So we got 25 votes here.
Yep.
And I have 52 media members who want those 25 votes.
Yep.
And, I disappoint some people every year when I say it's not your year. So, I hope that they're paying attention. I hope that they're not just, saying, well, who looks good this week? I'm going to turn on some highlights. Yeah. But, we'll see. Dennis, thanks so much.
Jack, you're one of the good ones. So, yeah, you're one of the better ones. Yeah. Thank you.
Really appreciate you joining us, Dennis, and I hope we'll see you down the road.
Jack, thanks so much again. Nice seeing you again.
Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports. I want to thank Carlton Valentine for joining us, and Tom Crawford, Blue Belly Tom, Jim Stark, the Michigan Sports Legacy Conservancy. No more baseball till spring training, but Michigan State at Purdue Saturday. We'll be at West Lafayette for that one. Have a great night, everyone.